Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Socratic Echo. Today, let's delve into an article by author Tengaria titled A Brief History of Philosophy, Part 1, From Antiquity to the Middle Ages. And let's get right into the content of the article now. Usually, when people hear the two words philosophy, they shake their heads in dismay. Shaking their heads because philosophy is considered lofty and incomprehensible. Dismayed because philosophy has few direct applications to everyday life and livelihood. In reality, philosophy is the foundation of everything around us. Philosophy is the study of the nature of the world, of the existence of all things, of whether we know or don't know, and of how we reflect on things. Broadly, philosophy has four main branches. The first branch is metaphysics. In this branch, philosophers seek answers to the nature of reality. What makes up the world around us? Second is epistemology. Epistemology grapples with the question of the nature of knowledge. What is truth and what is belief? What do we know? What do we believe? Or what do we doubt? Can we truly know what we think we know? And how do we know that we know? The third branch is ethics. This branch poses big questions about good and bad. What is good? What is bad? How is right or wrong determined? Is there something that is right in one context but wrong in another? The fourth branch is logic. Logic discusses ways of thinking and methods of reasoning. Logic is a powerful toolkit that complements many other disciplines. From ancient times to the present, humans have always been curious about the nature of the world. As long as humans exist, they will continue to think about philosophy. Let's try to go back in time to see how philosophy emerged and developed. The ancient period, from 700 BCE to 250 CE. The first generations of philosophers asked direct questions about the nature of the world around them. The things they saw, like the earth, the sun, thunder, and lightning, raised many questions about the nature of existence. What is it? How do we perceive the world? What is the relationship between body and mind? Moreover, these ancient philosophers also developed many methods of thinking and reasoning, laying the foundation for later philosophy. Around the 6th century BCE in China, a figure named Laozi appeared, the father of Taoism. According to him, the origin of all things is the Tao. The Tao gives birth to all things, but the Tao is not a thing itself. The Tao is the totality of the universe, the harmony of contrasts, of constant transformation and circulation. This is clearly expressed in the yin-yang symbol. Within yin, there is yang. Within yang, there is yin. Both blend and circulate. And for Laozi, to live a virtuous life, one must act according to the Tao. People need to live by wu-wei, non-action, living in harmony with nature, letting oneself flow with the current of all things to maintain the harmony of the world. Around 500 BCE, Confucius established Confucianism, with philosophical ideas rich in ethical colors. He divided people in society into many hierarchies, and between these hierarchies, there were specific moral principles and responsibilities. For example, a ruler must be benevolent to his subjects, and subjects must be loyal to the ruler. Children must obey their parents, and parents must love their children. Furthermore, he advocated governing society through morality. Those in higher positions had the responsibility to be moral exemplars. The ruler needed to set an example for the people in terms of integrity and righteousness, to civilize and educate them. Confucian thought became the core foundation of Chinese society for thousands of years. Siddhartha Gautama, a prince living in luxury and power, renounced everything to seek enlightenment, thereby creating Buddhism. He developed Buddhism through reason and inference, rather than passively accepting teachings from deities. He was concerned with big questions about the purpose of life, the origin of suffering and happiness, and how to live a good life. He saw that existence always comes with suffering, and this suffering comes from human desires. As long as humans have desires, they will still suffer from the disappointment of not being fully satisfied. The ultimate goal of life in Buddhist thought is to achieve nirvana, a state beyond the self and no longer bound by the suffering of reincarnation. Turning our gaze to the West, specifically ancient Greece, Socrates appeared as a very special case. He is considered the father of Western philosophy, although he did not create any school of thought or doctrine. What was special about him was his method of dialectical inquiry, also known as the Socratic method. For each problem, he would position himself as someone who knew nothing, then ask a series of questions to his interlocutor, digging deep into the core, gradually revealing contradictions. He believed that the life worth living is one that always asks questions. Otherwise, we will only live an ignorant life. His system of thought laid the foundation for later scientific reasoning methods. After his teacher Socrates departed from this world, his student Plato continued the fledgling steps of Western philosophy. Plato is famous for the allegory of the cave, where ordinary people only see the shadows of objects cast on the cave wall. For him, what we humans perceive through our senses is like the shadows on the wall, just shadows of reality, not reality itself. This is the foundation for his theory of forms. He believed that every object in this world has a corresponding form, a perfect and immutable entity. For example, there exists a form of an apple, embodying the ideal qualities of an apple, and the apples that people perceive are merely shadows of the form of the apple. Going further, Plato argued that two worlds exist in parallel: the world of eternal, immutable forms, and the sensory world, where humans perceive everything through their senses. And he believed that relying solely on the senses to understand the nature of the world is not enough, as one only sees the shadows. One must use reason and inference to reach the forms of all things. This approach is called rationalism. Aristotle was Plato's student, but he did not follow his teacher's approach. Contrary to the belief in ideal, immutable forms, Aristotle saw that truth could be found by observing the world. Using the apple example again, through the senses, humans perceive hundreds, thousands of apples, diverse in type and differing in many aspects. But they will have common characteristics, and those common characteristics make up the quality of what is called an apple. The more we observe and experience, the clearer our idea of an apple becomes. More broadly, according to Aristotle, truth exists right here in this world, not separate in a world of forms, and we can find that truth through experience and the senses. This approach is called empiricism, and the confrontation between rationalism and empiricism would continue for a very long time in history. Around 300 BCE, Stoicism emerged, founded by Zeno, and in the following few hundred years, philosophers like Cicero and Seneca helped spread Stoicism throughout the Roman Empire. The core idea of Stoicism advises us to only worry about things we can control in order to achieve inner tranquility. For example, when the weather turns bad or when a loved one passes away, Stoics would not be mentally devastated because these events are entirely beyond their control. Stoic thought also posits that we are responsible for our emotions and thoughts because our emotions are our choice. Emotions cloud reason and judgment. Removing emotions from the equation helps us make more sound decisions. The Middle Ages. The Middle Ages began when the Roman Empire collapsed, and Europe was strongly influenced by Christianity. The philosophical values of the Greco-Roman era gradually faded with the rise of Christianity. Society now sought direct answers to the nature of the universe through the Bible, rather than through philosophical discussions. However, many medieval scholars still sought to integrate Greek philosophy and Christianity to find rational explanations for religion. In another development, as Islam spread rapidly, Islamic scholars were the ones who preserved Greco-Roman philosophy for a long time. Augustine was both a devout believer and a person with many questions. He was particularly interested in the subject of good and evil. He wondered why God allowed evil to exist, and his answer was that God created everything except evil. According to him, evil is not a separate thing, but evil is the absence of good. A rogue is not a rogue because they possess roguishness, but because they lack goodness. Furthermore, he believed that humans have reason, and to create humans with reason, God needed to give humans free will. This means humans are free to act, including acting well or acting not so well. Humans can choose to obey God and act well, or go against God and act badly. In this way of thinking, the biblical belief in an omnipotent, omnibenevolent, omniscient God is preserved, and evil comes from the free will of us humans. The Roman philosopher Boethius also believed in an omniscient, omnibenevolent God, but this raised many questions for him about free will. A big question that troubled Boethius was, if God is omniscient and knows everything, how can humans have free will? For example, if we are going out this afternoon, God knows everything in the world, past, present, and future. The fact that we will go out in the future is already known by God right now. So, do we not truly have free will in choosing whether to go out or stay home this afternoon? Boethius's answer was that the way we perceive time is different from God's. Humans experience time as a linear flow from past to present to future. In contrast, Boethius believed that God exists in an eternal reality where past, present, and future are one. God perceives everything in an endless moment. Therefore, whether we intend to go out in the future or are currently at home, for God, it all lies within the same point in time. This does not prevent human free will. Avicenna was one of the most famous Arab philosophers. Although a Muslim, he followed Aristotle's thought and methods of argument. He conceived that mind and body are two separate things, illustrated by the thought experiment called the flying man. Suppose we were blindfolded and deafened, floating suspended in a void. We wouldn't know we had a body since there would be no physical sensations. Yet we would still be aware that we exist. So what is it that is existing? Avicenna believed this is our mind, separate from the body. Anselm was the Archbishop of Canterbury, a high position in the church hierarchy. Both devout and possessing logical talent, Anselm presented arguments proving God's existence. In his argument, he acknowledged two things. 1. God is that than which nothing greater can be conceived, and 2. Existence is greater than non-existence. He said that in our minds there can exist an idea of the greatest conceivable thing. Since God is the greatest thing we can conceive, God is the greatest thing in our minds. Point 1. But God existing only in the mind is not as great as God existing in both mind and reality. Point 2. Therefore, God must exist. According to this line of reasoning, merely thinking about God means God exists in both mind and reality. A few years later, a theologian named Thomas Aquinas presented arguments about the origin of all things. Take any object around us, for example. This object was formed from some cause. Then those causes, in turn, have causes that brought them about. That chain of cause and effect continues endlessly. Aquinas believed this was impossible. There must be a first cause, an uncaused cause that acts as the origin of the entire chain of cause and effect in the universe. According to him, this first cause is God. On the other hand, Aquinas also followed Aristotle's reasoning that the universe has always existed, meaning it is eternal. So where does God fit into the process of the universe? Aquinas reconciled both ways of thinking and concluded that God created the eternity of the universe. This argument helped him be honored as the official philosopher of Christian society in the Middle Ages. The strong religious color will gradually recede, yielding the stage to the more secular Renaissance. Part 2 will discuss philosophy from the Renaissance to the end of the Age of Revolution. If you like this video, please like and share to support us. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon next to it so you don't miss any videos we release in the future. Thank you for listening.